Llanos from Digital Hive and Tiana Magnon from Open Mic Rock. We'll let them go through and introduce themselves and then kick it off with a question and turn it over to all of you to ask your questions. So Steve, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hello. I'm Steve Carter. Not from Rochester, but been here 10 years now, so love it. It's home. Working at Eastman Kodak for the past 2 years now as now the head of social media at Kodak. And what that means is there's 35 plus different social media accounts across 4, 5, 6 different industries, and you got to think on all those different variables all the time. So with Kodak, it's been great being here in Rochester. I come from a background of marketing and management in school. I went to Roberts Wesleyan. That's why I came out here originally. And so, yeah, happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Sheila Dunn. I'm the president of Dunn Goodwin. We're a full-service digital marketing agency specializing in social media management, social media marketing, and content creation. So I actually got my start with all of this back in 2012. I started an Instagram account, and fast forward 6 months, it had about 200,000 followers, and I was able to see at a young age kind of the power of social media, how to engage an audience, grow an audience, and actually convert an audience. So I was able to monetize the account, partner with different brands from all around the world through my Instagram account. So I ended up selling that account and working with family and friends on their digital marketing, and then officially started Dunn Goodwin about 2.5 years ago, and today have grown our team and expanded to work with a lot of different clients across all different industries, really utilizing social media to connect audiences and grow their businesses.
Hey
The
guys.
one guy who doesn't need a microphone.
I know I was going to say, this is ill timing, because I'm going to be real loud. I'm Jeff. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Digital Hive. This feels nice. Look, she's helping already. So I am CEO and co-founder of Digital Hive. I spent 8 years in broadcast television before starting Digital Hive. Digital Hive is also a full-service digital marketing agency, so Sheila and I will have a great conversation, I'm sure, up here. Just a quick story, a lot of my Channel 13 peeps are here, Noah Holland, Jim Johnson. So I spent 5 years in Rochester and then went to a TV station in Syracuse at NBC, CBS, and CW affiliate out there. 3 years into that job as a manager of advertising for those stations, I joined my business partner, his name's Jake, and started Digital Hive. That was 5 years ago last month, so we've been in business for about 5 years. We started off with just the two of us, 2 co-founders, 200 square foot office, tiny little space, and then fast forward 5 years. In 2018, we were named the Inc. magazine comes out with their fastest 5,000 growing companies every year in the country. We were the 52nd fastest growing company in the US. We were the 5th fastest growing advertising and marketing company in the US. We were also named one of the top 360 businesses in the country by Entrepreneur magazine. So we've been very fortunate, and we've done it all in upstate New York, and we love Rochester, and I can't wait to share more with you guys soon. Thank you.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Tiana Magnon. I'm the editor-in-chief of Open Mic Rochester. It's an online magazine. It's easily Rochester's fastest growing magazine at this point. But my background is actually in journalism, so it's been very interesting to lead a magazine in different ways than just creating content. So I would say a little bit of my specialty here would be if you're looking to grow something from absolutely nothing, I think Sheila and I would be your girls for that. I'm really excited to kind of just hear what questions you have and just see how we can help you. Cool.
All right, so we'll turn it over to you all in just a second, but I want to get things rolling with a question that's probably on many of your minds. If you're in marketing, you probably have a limited budget, you wish you had more. If you're in social media marketing, you probably even got a smaller budget and definitely need more. So the question being, how can folks maximize the utility of their very, very limited digital media marketing budget and ensure that they're reaching the most people, getting their word out, getting their brand out, and really, again, making the most of it?
Yeah, you're like talking to me.
You got the microphone, it's all you.
I would say you're going to have to be willing to do a lot more work than most departments. So most importantly, every single time you get a comment back, at least like it. Twitter, right now, they're actually prioritizing comments over retweets, especially if you're an artist. So you want to make sure that you really understand how these algorithms change almost day to day. What's actually most impactful? Is it a like? Is it a comment? Is it your stories? If you don't use stories on Instagram, Instagram really doesn't even prioritize you in other people's feeds. So not just your story, but your post as well won't actually show up. So you're gonna have to both do research, create your own content and then also engage with the audience. And make sure above everything else that you know what's working and what's not working. Use those analytics report, build another in Excel. They have a lot of templates that you can use, because if you're just you and you have no money, you don't want to waste your time and your effort redoing a bunch of stuff that doesn't work. So make sure you know what works, even if it's kind of counter to what's on the internet. If it works for your audience, you keep doing that.
She just gave 47 pieces of advice in 30 seconds.
I have nothing left. We're done here. I'll just start by saying that I believe in all forms of advertising. I think that all forms of advertising marketing can work, whether that's print, TV, radio, billboards, all those things. But I'll also say that Facebook and Google, those two companies, now have more advertising revenue than every newspaper, magazine, and radio network in the world combined. And I'm not just saying all search engines and all social media. I'm saying that two companies that started 20 years ago in dorm rooms now have more advertising revenue than every Condé Nast publication, than every radio station in France is advertising, every Chinese newspaper. All of these things combined, now two companies have more advertising revenue. And I think what really drives that, to answer Mark's question, is the data behind all of the things that Google and Facebook, because they know everything about us. It's creepy, and it just is. And so the reality is that what's great about digital marketing when you're on a budget is that it's extremely targeted and it's extremely measurable. When I was in TV advertising, the hard part was not, again, I think TV advertising is great, but it's a great branding mechanism. You know, if I'm watching the 5 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news, everybody that happens to be watching that news program sees that ad. But if you have a very niche business, let's say that you're, I don't know, a veterinarian, and you want to just talk to people with pets, and you're in Pittsburgh, and you want to only talk to people within a 10-mile radius of your office, you can do that. So you can be extremely targeted, and you can make sure that your ads are working because it's all measurable, right? The old adage used to be 50% of my marketing works. I just don't know which 50%, right? Now you do, because everything from the time that someone sees your ad, to how many times they saw it, to the time they click to go to your website, to once they get to their website, what do they do? Did they click to fill out an appointment? Did they click to call? Whatever they did, you're able to track that and then use that data to make all of your marketing decisions even better. Was a male in the ad working better than the female? So there's a lot of ways to optimize these ads, and so when you're on a tight digital marketing budget, it's really smart to just use the data available to you for both the targeting aspects as well as the accountability measurable aspects. And then when you use that data, because really, a lot of times when I think about Digital Hive, we're almost more of a data company than we are a marketing company, and that's how you want to be strategic about your digital marketing budgets.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel all of that. I would say, I would concur with the idea of being active organically, so it doesn't cost any money, just your time to go on every post and comment back. If you're based in Rochester, go to the Rochester, New York location tag on Instagram and comment on the top 9 posts every single day, every single hour they get refreshed. So that doesn't take any money, so there's a lot of organic ways to do it. Use social media and digital marketing to really win over new business. And again, I think Facebook and Instagram advertisements are extremely underpriced right now, and they're getting more and more expensive as more and more people are going. It's just simply supply and demand, but you really have to take advantage of the time now. Even 2 years ago, it was cheaper than it is now. So yeah, very cost effective to reach 1,000 people on Facebook, and it gets backed up by all the data and analytics, so you can really tell what's working, what's not.
Yeah, everything that's been said, write that down. So I guess to add to it, I will say, like Jeff talked about a lot, paid, and that's like, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity within that. With the targeting that you can do now, it's way more cost effective than anything else that there is. And then you can measure it like Jeff was saying. But like from an organic standpoint, or just what content that you're putting out there that you're using to boost and pay for, that's really where I think it needs to come down to. You need to be authentic to what your company is or what your brand is or who you are. It really should be augmenting the other activities that you're doing. It shouldn't be like replacing it. The activities are how people know you as a brand and the interactions that they have with you on a personal level, like if say you own like a coffee shop, what you're experiencing there, it should reflect that experience on social media. So you shouldn't be a completely different person on social media than you are in real life. And so that's the same, I would say, for brands too. And I think it's easy for me, the easiest way for me to talk about things is when it's related to something that like I have firsthand experience with. So with like Kodak, for example, I'll jump into that. I mean, we saw that for us, I mean, Instagram is a great opportunity because Kodak traditionally is known as a photo company. And so how do we encourage more people to be active and engage with us on social media? And that was to add value to that community, that photo community. And so really figuring out how you can, as a brand or as a person, add value to your followers, your audience, whether that's through content, through relationships, through comedy. Social media is really that first touch point now. Over oftentimes, especially, well, it's the first touch point to be able to reach people almost anywhere. So that's where all these different tools kind of come into place when it comes with like paid advertising too. It just enhances that. So there's a lot of options. Yeah.
No, it's good.
Out there.
No, I think the science behind social media, the advertising, but also, Tiana was talking about a lot of the free things you can do by, rather than encouraging a retweet, encourage a comment. Have people, like certain tweets at certain times and sort of the science behind it. I think it's really, really beneficial to know that stuff. So with that, I'm sure there are many questions. Celebrity Jennifer Johnson.
Ask the dumb question. Great, thanks. No, I just wanted to quickly follow up with Tiana. You mentioned always checking the algorithm because it can change each day, each hour. Where do you go to check that?
I cannot believe Jennifer Johnson is asking me a question.
and you're on the record, so.
Oh my God.
This will be on the news.
Honey, we can hang out. Pick your brain.
You're springing too much on me right now. Oh my gosh. No, so a lot of it is actually organic. You don't always have to seek it out. A lot of times people get so upset about things anyway, they tweet it out. So I follow a couple artists, and so that was just going down my feed anyway. But if you ever want to, you can actually just Google it. You can literally just type it into your computer, and more often than not, some journalist who already works in these kind of spheres already has heard about it from someone and was already starting to talk about it. The weird one is Instagram. Twitter is always covered. If they make any changes, you will find it on Twitter, and if not, on the internet. Instagram gets a little bit weird because it's a little bit of a younger crowd for that one, and so you don't see as many updates online. What I would say for that one is to see what is actually working for you. A lot of times what shows up in your feed helps you understand what's showing up in others people's feed. So for example, if you notice that you're not seeing very recent posts, that lets you know already recently that they're prioritizing old posts when the timeline changed. But another way to do this is just to kind of experiment, because Instagram is something that it's okay to experiment with. A lot of times your posts won't show up, and so this is a great opportunity to just kind of reach out to people and say, what have you noticed? This is a really good time to have friends in this field and just bounce ideas off of each other. Have you noticed that comments don't matter as much? What's really making your posts go up to the top? And then just borrow back and forth.
Yeah, I think the good news to that is that it is all about testing.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I'll speak on Google's behalf, but like their algorithm, they come out and they'll say something about their new algorithm update, and they're totally misleading you because they don't want people to manipulate the algorithm. So a lot of it does turn into testing and trying new things. January of 2018, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said basically the brand reach is dead on the Facebook algorithm. And it's been proven true. I mean, you get really, I think the average these days are anywhere from it's different studies because there's like no internet god, unfortunately. But it's between 1% and 5% organic reach when you post something. So if you have 100 people following your brand's page, 1 or 5 of those people even have the opportunity to see it. Now, the whole rationale behind it was, oh, well, people want to see people, right? That was the rationale of Mark saying, hey, Mark, I call him, my boy Mark, Mr. Zuckerberg, the aliens. When he posted the thing about, the algorithm update, he was saying, well, people want to see other people's content. The reality is, we all know that it's a pay-for-play. They want you to pay to have your brand's message get to more people. That's just the reality. But also, what I don't like about how they positioned it was, don't tell me what I want to see, right? Because if I've liked a brand, if I've gone and followed Mark, and then I find the Greater Rochester Chambers page, and I want to follow them, I chose that. It's like opting into an email newsletter, right? So don't then hide that content from me as a user. Not that we can do much about it, but that's what's frustrating to me. And so I think testing out, trying to get your brand to be seen more, engaging. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about organic strategies, but that's my little annoyingness on the Facebook algorithm specifically.
Yeah, and you definitely can Google it and find the latest updates, but there is, I would say, no like secret formula. You do have to just test a lot of different things, and as Instagram or Facebook sees that your post is performing well, sees that people who have opted in actually do like to engage with you, then it's going to show it to more and more people. So it's kind of different per account. You can kind of leverage it and utilize it to the best advantage if you're getting a better response. But yeah, it definitely changes every day. I've heard, it was said that you should use Instagram TV very frequently, and we all were like, oh, they're just saying that because it's a new feature that they want people to use, but we tested it out, did Instagram TVs every day, and it does work. So you just kind of have to test different things, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like testing is so important. And that's one of the things that's special about social media is you can throw things out there and test it and get kind of the responses quick back to see if it's working. But I will add to one thing for me. Did I turn it off? No. One thing for me is finding other people within the social media field and following them. I found that I follow a lot of social media managers for, let's say, like the New York Stock Exchange, the guy that runs that, he's very active. I think it's like M. Kobach, social media. He shares a lot of like tips, and so these people sharing it. There's Saltbox CA on Twitter as well, and they're just sharing a lot about what's happening in the industry and how like you can learn from it, and there's conversations happening about it. So for me, on my personal accounts, I've found that really beneficial.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you tell people, what would you say to businesses about the use of video? Because obviously I work in a field where video is super important, but like, do you suggest posts are the most important thing? Posts about like a business, or do you suggest short videos that you post? Like Instagram. I love Instagram because people post little videos about day-to-day life, and it sort of creates a sense of like the flavor of the business, or like, are those more important? I mean, what would you suggest, a mix of like regular written posts, type posts, and then video? And how important is video?
Go for it. Yeah, so video, I mean, Instagram stories, like Tiana said, I think those have blown up, and I think that's where like Instagram is prioritizing a lot. And when you're active on that, it's affecting your feed, and it's affecting how people engage with you across everything within Instagram, and you can share it right to Facebook stories too, and stuff like that. So I really think there's a lot of value in that, but you also have to be active on your feed to be able to balance it. Video is great from an authentic standpoint. For bigger brands, I find that a lot of larger brands aren't, it's harder for them to like just throw like a slice of life kind of piece together. But so there's a lot more production that goes into video. And so if you're a bigger company, it's sometimes you have to find what fits best for you and fits best for your audience. But video can work wonders for you, or it could be a lot of time and effort and no ROI. And so, it depends. It really depends on your audience.
So I want to piggyback on that, and maybe for Jeff or Sheila regarding data. You read articles and you see posts that, if you post a graphic or a picture or a video or music or something, you're more likely to get people to interact with your whatever social media post it is, and thereby getting more visibility and like that. Whereas if you have all your accounts connected and there's a tweet that's cut off because there's an Instagram link and no one can really see it, can you pick that apart just a little bit in terms of how to ensure, I guess the question that everybody wants, how to make sure people are interacting with your tweet or your Facebook post or Instagram post?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you were talking about how if you post something on Instagram, you can share it right to Facebook, and it might get cropped a little
Sure,
bit.
and then to the question, just how to make sure that you're, again, what's going to get people to look at your post, to interact with your post in a meaningful way?
Yeah, so I think, exactly. The data backs it up. If you have visual content in your post, it typically does better. For our clients, we see a lot that video does the best. Video and audio in 2019 is huge. And again, each platform though is so different. So Twitter should be very concise captions, very attention-grabbing captions, whereas YouTube or Facebook, longer form videos do well. A lot of times what we do with video is, let's say we do a 2-minute promotional video, we can cut that up into a lot of different micro content, so 3 to 6 second videos, screenshots of the video to get 10 to 15 different photos, make a quick GIF or meme about it. So we can get a lot of different micro content, maybe 30 pieces from one longer form video. So that's one way to kind of use that ROI and sort of put money into video, but you can get a lot of pieces of content, and then if you distribute it in an effective way, that's where I think you see the big return.
Yeah, so I just want to build off something Steve and Sheila both said. They said ROI. So return on investment, when people say that social media is free, I hate that, because most of you in the room know how much time you're investing in social media. You know, when you talk about commenting on things every hour of the day, and Steve, how are you even here with 35 accounts? Shouldn't you be? Yeah, I can imagine. Like, you must be blowing up literally all the time. So it's not free. It's a huge investment of time. And so when you think about that investment, right? We talk about return on investment. You have to think, what we always try to, how to think about social media, or really any digital marketing in general, is you kind of want to work backwards. So you think about, what is the goal? What am I trying to accomplish, either with this post, or holistically, what am I trying to accomplish with my social media presence? Who is my audience? What do I want my audience to feel and think and act once they see my social media content? So that's really, really important. And I don't know, so often we, we're a lot of people that we work with in smaller, medium-sized businesses, or even sometimes larger businesses, they'll post and they have a voice, and they think that but at the end of the day, they're not doing it with intention. And I would strongly urge thinking about the intentionality behind your social media and how you're creating content, because then once you have a good understanding of that, then you can back it up with, we should do videos that are based around this. We should do animations or GIFs that are GIF. I like GIF, but it's not the right word apparently. But all of that different content creation. Once you have kind of your North Star for what that brand is supposed to be and why you're doing what you're doing, that's when you can start to create really great content. And very honestly, I have read all the things like, video, if you post video, it's gonna get more engagement, but at the end of the day, the most thing that's gonna work for you from the algorithm standpoint is if you have a heavily engaged post, right? Whether that's just text, images, videos, whatever it is. If you have really engaging, authentic, genuine posts being made, and people are commenting on them, and to what Sheila said earlier about people enjoying that content, then the algorithms are naturally gonna say, hey, this is, a lot of people wanna see this, let's show it to more people. So at the end of it, to boil it down to very basics, it's like, how can you be likable on social media? How are you adding value to your followers to show them, hey, this is, we know this is what you want to see, so here's some more of that.
Anything to add?
Sure. I guess I would say, being in a newsroom, I know exactly how busy it can get, and putting out video, it can get really difficult. My number one tip to my journalists is, look around what's already happening. Can you make a video out of what you're doing? If you look really great that day, why can't you do a boomerang? I mean, you are an anchor. People might want to see how great you look before they turn on the morning news.
I know, yeah.
It's all great.
So if you're not having fun with your social media, your audience isn't either. This isn't just for information. This is a way to engage people. So you don't always have to completely change what you're doing. Kind of look around first. See what's around you that can be made into a GIF or a video, and go from there. Because that way, when you're testing things out, you're not putting that much effort into it. It allows you to test things out with things that you're already doing. And if it does pan out, well, now you don't have to put that much effort into it. You're already on the path to success.
That's great. Okay. Nobody? Yes.
So you mentioned earlier that you have how many accounts that you're managing, Steve? Yeah.
35 plus. We're creating new ones too as it goes on every day.
So how do you practically oversee all of those? So at our college, we have multiple accounts that are popping up every day, and I'm trying to either squash them or encourage them to come meet with me and, hey, can I help you? Can I give you, because some of them are terrible and some of them aren't, and so how do you manage all of that?
So and that you brought up an interesting point there too. we have 35 official accounts. There's probably hundreds and thousands of unofficial accounts, and that gets messy. But the ones that we have, we use a social media tool to help us kind of bring all the feeds into one to be able to engage and see what kind of questions are coming in. So we're using Hootsuite for that. But oftentimes I'm just using my phone to check things. I mean, I find that Instagram is way better on my phone than it is obviously through a tool. So it's just always having to switch through. But it is a lot to keep up with, and it's it's just you have to kind of set aside time in your day. First thing in the morning, I'm going to come in and I'm going to check and see what came in overnight, and then keep checking a few different times during the day, see what kind of questions are coming in. People sometimes expect immediate responses, and you can't let that dictate your life, but at the same time, if you can be responsive, if you have a bigger team, you can be a lot more responsive, and you can have things set up for that. But for us, it's just been, actually, to be frank, it's just me and an intern. So for all those, content too. So it's a small team here, but we're making it happen.
He's got to go.
I'm tired.
He's under the table working on it right now.
Under the table I've been working.
So Steve, I just want to follow up on that. So if you're objectively, you're all social media experts, and you've been doing this. So it's tough, but you can manage 35 accounts with an intern. If you are not an expert, which most of us probably are not, and you have 2 or 3 accounts, that can seem like a lot. Can you talk about what technology like Hootsuite does and how that consolidates everything and why that's a beneficial program?
Yeah, and I would highly recommend not having 35 accounts. It just happens to be a lot of those were legacy accounts left over. We've actually shut down some, and we've added some depending on the needs. Really, like what Jeff was saying too earlier, you start with the audience. You start with your end users, and you build from there. And so we found what the needs are based on that, and that's why we have accounts in certain places and certain industries and whatnot. Some of the accounts, like one of the accounts, for example, we have the Kodak Center account. So we need to have those 4 accounts because there's events happening at the Kodak Center all the time. But those are very hyper-local compared to what we're doing on a global scale. For us, for Hootsuite, it comes in handy just because, it consolidates, brings everything into one. It allows you to schedule, to post. Scheduling is actually a huge part. If you can get ahead and you can start to create content ahead of time, weeks, ideally, at the same time, I go back and forth between it because you want to get ahead, but at the same time, you want to be able to be reactionary to how things are happening every day. That's why it's important to check during the day. You might have certain posts scheduled for that day, but to just not check it, you might miss the conversations that are happening on social media because that changes day to day, and those could be conversations that relate to what you're doing and what your business is, and so it's important to be able to be reactionary too. I don't know if I fully answered that question, but I think everybody here has some good stuff.
Absolutely.
A little inside baseball on higher ed. I have never, between higher ed and healthcare, it's probably the most siloed industry in the freaking world. So I'm on the board at SUNY Oswego and OCC. We have probably 15 higher ed clients. Each one of them has the problem of the drama club wants their own social media, and it needs to,
or the counseling center.
The counseling center.
Or the career development.
The dog mascot of this Phi Beta Kappa wants their own social media. And every time it's so hard to rank these, you're herding cats, right? And so it is a challenge, and I empathize because I've heard it a number of times. It is really tough to go through. But I think, Steve's point, trying to figure out, having software with collaboration software, social media software does help. We use a thing called Airtable. It's basically like a spreadsheet that you can use to be able to collaborate across different things. We use it a lot of times if we're writing content for clients. They can easily access our calendar and things like that. Sprout Social is also really good. Another alternative to it's more expensive. That is we have fine taste, my friend. It is more expensive than Hootsuite, but it does come with a little bit extra layers of data. So it's all about what is the goal, right? Because if you can, see, and I, what Steve said is super important. Getting ahead of it is critical because it allows you to be reactionary, right? If you're not ahead of it, then you're like, oh my gosh, we don't have anything for today, and then you miss stuff because you completely, flew by it. So. I empathize. I just want to say I empathize. Understand the struggles, and I think that collaboration and kind of trying to get those folks, all those stakeholders together in one meeting and just saying, hey, if we're going to represent, this higher ed institution, we want to do it with consistency, and we want to talk to, prospective students, family members, whatever it is, in the same way. So we really need to be on the same page with that and come up with the brand standards and guidelines and all those things that'll help. So, yeah.
I have just, and to think back to when they request this account, you have to think of how many people are actually going to follow that account, and like what kind of content are they going to be able to put out on a regular. So that's one of the things, like we get hit with that too, with different partnerships or other things that we're working on at Kodak, and we're like, say we have solar panels that are only for sale in South America. Like really, how many people are going to follow that account on social media? So let's figure out, can we do something that's a little bit more consolidated that can represent all of South America, or something that represents all of that kind of technology, and try to bring multiple different accounts into one thing. So it depends on that too.
I wanted to create one for Bob's Halloween costumes, and I was told no.
Meme accounts, that's a totally different thing. So.
Yeah.
I have a question about going B2B versus B2C, and especially if you're B2B and you're niched. And so we've tried different things. We've never had luck with Facebook. We've tried 3 different times, lots of testing, and just wanted some ideas around that B2B niche play, and in general, how it changes between B2B and B2C and things like that, yeah.
Can we give like a 10-second overview of B2B and B2C and what that might mean? Just for those people who don't know. I'm obviously an expert, I just don't know.
I totally know the answer to that, but what do you guys think it means?
A quick overview of what that is.
Yeah, to me, it's selling to business versus business to consumer.
We have done this before.
Obviously, very different kind of marketing strategies, much longer sales cycle for the business to business, lots of different types of content you're producing, very different. However, the same sort of similar concept. For B2B, I've seen a lot of great success with recruiting. So recruiting top talent, kind of showcasing your company culture is a big one, as well as using your social media as a sales tool. Kind of it's legitimacy, it's thought leadership, it's awareness, and it does lead to sales, all of those things, but it's more, in my opinion, it's more top of the funnel, sales funnel, than necessarily as a direct sales tool. When you're talking about e-commerce or B2C, selling a product online, yes, you're going to see direct conversions of sales. But using it for B2B is more awareness, thought leadership, and establishing leads too, but then obviously you need to take those leads and then sell those leads.
Tiana, anything to add?
That was pretty much perfect. I think especially the thought leadership part, you really want to start to, I guess, posit yourself as an expert, obviously. I think every single business wants to do that, but you especially. Because I think consumers are a little bit more willing to take a risk than businesses are. So you need to get ahead of any discussion that they're having, but also preempt any questions that they may have about your services, your products, or even how you handle things. For instance, let's say if you drop the ball, a business wants to know that they don't have to reach out to you, you're going to reach out to them and let them know what's going on. So I think, showing a little bit of that leadership, showing inside what you guys are doing, and really just highlighting the culture of your workplace, because businesses are hiring you for you and not always what your product or service is.
I think we have another question. Oh, right there.
You guys mentioned Instagram and trying new things to see what works. But what happens when you have a client that you can't really experiment with, that has pretty set parameters? We had a client Instagram that went from 900 likes to about 100 overnight, and nothing changed. And we really don't have that much wiggle room in what we're posting. So what would you suggest?
So do you know why that huge drop happened? Was it, my guess, if I could assume, or if I could guess, it probably was they often go through, getting rid of a lot of bot accounts and spam accounts.
We didn't lose any followers or very much reach, but it
engagement.
coincided with some modifications they were making to how they rank hashtags, so I think that had something to do with it.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense. Well, I'll build off your point and answer a little bit your question as well. I think that specifically, like on the B2B side, it's important to understand which each, because Dunn Goodwin and Digital Hive are both B2B companies, right? We're talking to other businesses. And I think it's important to understand how you talk to your customers, whether it is B2C or B2B. For Instagram, for example, if you go to Digital Hive's Instagram, you'll see it's all about culture. It's all about building. Just like you said, it's about our lifestyle, it's about recruitment. But on LinkedIn, it's a little bit more professional, and we put a little bit more content out there and things like that. So I think that's really understanding the value of each platform and who those audiences are very important. From the algorithm standpoint, I think that's exactly the kind of the thing is, it's exactly what we were talking about earlier, where it is testing. When something like that bombs that hard, because I think all of us had an audible groan up here when we heard that. That's no bueno. So a lot of times what we'll try to do is we'll test new strategies. The benefit that I think that we have as agencies, speaking for Sheila and myself, is that we get to see a number of clients, and we are able to test amongst a lot of different platforms. So when somebody is a little bit more sterile, or they have very strict guidelines of what they can post, how they can post, all those things, it's kind of twofold. One, you kind of have to set the expectation that if this is the guidelines that you're giving us and our engagement is dropping this much, but we really can't test, we really can't try things, you're going to get what you've always gotten, right? Unless you try new things, it's really not going to get much better. So you have to kind of set that expectation. Second is trying to be creative within the parameters, of course, right? So if you have if you're working for your brand, or you have clients yourselves, a lot of times what it is thinking about, like, maybe we'll think, oh, this worked really well with the client, it was an animation ad that we made with Adobe Animation or something like that. It worked really well, the engagement was up, we're seeing a good trend there, maybe we'll try that for this brand as well. So I don't think for that big of a drop, good luck, but just kidding, it'd be great. I don't really have, specifically for that, I don't have great advice other than it's just, I think it's really just testing and trying new things and working on expanding those brand standards and guidelines a little bit more.
Steve, or Sheila, you have some minute?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, go back into the testing and kind of, if someone is sort of being strict with things, you could show them the data of this works better than this, so this is why we should go this way. As well as this is where some of those other softwares like Hootsuite, Sprout Social, we use Agorapulse, we use a lot of reporting software, can come into play because you can see exactly, and each social media gives their own insights, but you can see exactly this time to post is better than this time, and this hashtag gets better engagement than this hashtag, so that's where maybe some social media softwares could come into play.
And I think one other thing at the end of the day too is thinking back at the core of whatever it is you're sharing and cutting out maybe the reliance upon maybe these hacks or using hashtags. Like if you're relying on hashtags for the engagement, that could change. And if you're relying on there's so many different things. And with social media, it changes so fast. And so go back to the core, that's the content. What are you sharing there? What are you creating there? Does it add value? Can it go across different kinds of channels? Can it work on the web too? Because who knows? There might be a new social network that comes up tomorrow, or Instagram might be down for a week, or something just that happens. And so you have to think through, at the end of the day, what is it I'm sharing, and what is the value I'm creating? And then can that work across many different platforms, or in different ways? It might work in totally different ways across those platforms, but can it work across those without having to be reliant upon the social media businesses, like the companies themselves, because they change so often?
I was just thinking as you were speaking that you may want to just look at the business and understand the business, because it could be cyclical. Like if you're selling ski caps, you have a lot of hits in the wintertime versus the summertime.
Yeah.
And we're in the health insurance business, so we have our enrollment in the fall, so we get lots of hits then, but then it drops off in other parts of the year. So it may not be what you're doing, it could be just the nature of the business.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Tiana?
Go, Tiana.
I would say to add to that, if your business is cyclical, take advantage of that and really create really high quality content on those off times. So that way, when things come back around, you've already built this amazing engaged audience that's ready to sign up.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, yes.
Instagram stories. So I want to know all things, obviously, but do you find there's a difference in engagement between content that's organically produced within stories itself versus like professionally graphic designed content, and then just general like best
story.
Yeah.
The
And
story-
Tiana, can you do that? I actually know this one, but just the
We don't believe you now.
The difference between an Instagram story and then an Instagram post.
Yeah, so
and then same with something like, well, I guess Snapchat's a little different, but like an Instagram story.
The posts are everything you see in your feed, and the stories are those little rainbow circles at the top. So if you click it, I hope this isn't, okay, it's appropriate.
Hilarious.
I know. So I would say for this, it's a really good idea to mix it up and use both high quality and a little bit of slice of life. I think that's a good term that we can just use for that kind of B-roll stuff. Mix it up because you have so many slides, people don't want to look at the same thing. So do not share 10 pictures of this panel on your story today. The best idea is to kind of mix it up, give different perspectives, one close up, one further away, one that's a boomerang, one that's a video. Another really good idea is that do not make your stories unless you are asking for engagement. On every single story, there is a way to add a poll, to add how much people like things. They can send in questions, they can vote on stuff. They can even send donations through your story. So I would especially say that on every single slide, you should have some kind of call to action because people don't want to just swipe through. They want to tell you what they think of whatever it is.
Boom.
And I would just add, like, professionally done quality for a video versus an authentic and raw video you just take on your phone. We've actually experimented with both in an ad form. For instance, on Snapchat, people aren't expecting to see a professionally done video on Snapchat. So they'll think that's an ad immediately. So we've even experimented with, our client took a video like this talking about a deal he was having, and we ran it to the Rochester area on Snapchat. So, for instance, I think that would be a good idea. Try both. Again, it comes back to testing. It's not one secret formula for everything. But then also on Instagram too. I mean, I've seen people be really creative with stories. There's all sorts of things you can do. All the interactions. You can put a professionally done video on a story, which might separate you from everyone else and actually get them to watch the full video. So you kind of want to maybe try both.
Yeah, and for us, for Kodak, what we've done is we've tested all of it. And so we've seen that actually the authentic, like the slice of life stuff, the B-roll, where it's imperfect, it's not necessarily a well-produced video. It's thought out, like what we're trying to do, but it's filmed on the phone, and those have done really, really well for us. But then we've also seen that our design team, we make graphics that have something of value for people. What I've found though with that is having one by itself, like just putting like one, we produced like a 15-second video one time, and just having that by itself in the story, that for us got, let's say like 14,000 views. But then when we did like a video where there's like 5 and it's just, we're in the film factory, just showing little parts of that got over 100,000. So you get a mix, and so even if this thing took a lot longer to make, it doesn't necessarily mean like that has the best results. So trying both, and we found that mixing both, it has worked really well for us too.
Yeah, I'll say, and if you have an Instagram account, you follow a lot of political candidates, especially around presidential election, you'll see on the stories, on an Instagram story or Snapchat story, they're just walking down the street with their family. They're not, and Steve Tiana to the point that they're not these highly produced, because when you see those, you assume it's an ad, you scroll right through it, but if you see that it's an authentic sort of, an authentic post with, their family walking the park, whatever it is, you'll engage with it, and then that helps their analytics, and to the point that's been made by Jeff and others, the more people engage with your post, the more other people see their posts, so they want it to be more authentic. Those are, the science behind it is really super interesting. Joe, do you have a question back there?
Yeah, outside of paid advertising on LinkedIn, what should you use to reach outside your network? Like, everyone in my network knows I hawk MBAs at the Simon School and think you should get one, but I need everyone else to know. So how should I do that?
Well, I think that's where sort of the paid advertising comes in and targeting those people you're trying to reach. Because that's how you reach outside of your network. You can certainly build your organic reach in a variety of ways, but in order to expand that reach, that's where the paid advertising comes in, and targeting specific industries, specific titles, specific like job title specific, sizes of businesses. On LinkedIn, for example, is how you could reach outside of your network.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I know paid is definitely huge, and it's a great, especially when you're talking about B2B, honing in on job titles, industries, all those kind of things is awesome. And if you asked me 3 years ago if LinkedIn was good for paid advertising, I'd say absolutely not. Now it's pretty phenomenal from a paid standpoint. I think organically, if you're going to go after people and try and build your network, I personally love LinkedIn. I find that it has the strongest algorithm. I posted a picture once of me and Bob at our grand opening in our Rochester office, and because of Bob, it had a bajillion views on it. He wasn't in a Halloween costume, but that would have made it even better. So I think that it has a really good reach because I've made a lot of connections over the years. I've grown my network. I'm not quite an open networker, but I'm pretty close, meaning I don't accept everyone, but I accept a lot of people that I know. And LinkedIn is one of those social medias that even if you don't know the person, it's not creepy to connect with them, which is nice, because there's always kind of a reason behind it. It's an open networking kind of thing. I think another way to kind of expand your network there is, going, if you go to one of the Navigator upgraded LinkedIn personal profiles, you can search for specific job titles and by industries and all kinds of things and find new people to connect with, as well as commenting on other people's stuff. Because the algorithm is so strong for showing up people's content, I think when you engage with other people that are, if you're trying to you're hawking those MBAs, if you're trying to do that, going after people that maybe are influencers and commenting on their posts, because then on other people's posts, they'll see that you commented, and sometimes it says, John, posted on this thing, and then that piece of content will come up. So it does have a strong algorithm, and I think engaging with other people, connecting with other businesses on LinkedIn, I think can help if you're not going to go the paid route. But I would agree with Sheila, LinkedIn, specifically for B2B, is super strong. Just want to make sure you're setting up all those goal conversions and things like that to ensure that the measurability and the ROI is there.
No, I don't know anything about LinkedIn.
I know Tiana was like, I'm too young for LinkedIn, and maybe I'm gonna throw up a little. Oh, sorry, just kidding. She didn't say that.
But just to add, and respect that these are obviously all incredible panelists, and none of them are here to shamelessly plug. But I would say, to that question, it does help to engage these folks and their companies because that's their bread and butter. That's what they do. They help you to get outside of a network, maybe so far outside of a network that you didn't even know existed, and sort of to reach those people. So, again, that's specifically what Sheila and Jeff and what they do. So,
you mentioned, you brought up influencers. How important is that when you're trying to connect and grow your audience? And again, like 35 accounts, I also manage about 20 of them. So I'm trying to, on different, it's fun, on different, 4 months into the job, real fun, on different levels and trying to find the influencers that work with the different accounts. So how important are they when it comes to expanding? And how do you find them?
Yes, great question. So I think just like anything else, it's about identifying that goal in the front end and saying, all right, if I'm going to have an influencer strategy, what do I want these influencers to accomplish for me, right? Where's my return on investment going to be? And the easiest way to ask yourself because sometimes I talk to people about goals, and they'll be like, I don't know what my goal is, but the easiest way to kind of think about it is to say, all right, if in 6 months you tried this new strategy and you said, my gosh, I'm glad I spent this money or I spent this time doing X, Y, and Z. I'm so happy to do that, I wouldn't change a thing. Why are you saying that, right? And then that will help you identify what those goals are. Then you can work backwards and say, all right, how am I going to get to here 6 months from now? So in terms of influence, I think it's an absolutely growing opportunity for all brands because it helps to increase your exposure, right? We talk about engagement with other people. We just got off talking about LinkedIn and how you go to LinkedIn influencers and things like that to help with your own organic content. But I think that it's a great way. It's no different than today's celebrity spokesperson. It's just really all it is, except that everybody's a freaking spokesperson now, which is like maddening, but whatever. And so I think that it's absolutely a great case. But you have to understand, first of all, the first thing I'd say is we've had brands that use influencers and they don't set up some form of contractual obligation to those influencers, and that's a dangerous thing. Because if your influencer goes sideways, let's say you're a hotel and you have travel influencers and they have bed bugs or whatever, and they start posting about that, it causes more harm than good. So make sure that you have some kind of agreement of what they can post, how they can talk about your brand, and it's very, formulative. In terms of how to find them, it's all about following hashtags. I think somebody said it earlier. Following hashtags, finding those influencers in that way. But there's also micro-influencer platforms that are out there right now. So you can actually go into and search for, based on categories, based on different activities and interests around what your brand, goals are. You can search for them and then identify those people and then actively reach out to those folks, whether it's video game influencers or whatever, and then have a conversation with them, hire them to do a job, and those platforms are making it easy and easier. So I think that that's another great opportunity.
Any suggestion on a particular platform?
No, because honestly, there's a lot of. Oh, Steve has one. Just kidding.
No, I
Yes.
do, but you.
I mean, I have a great one, but Steve's gonna talk.
Sorry. I've heard of Stackla is one that I've seen, and then there was Meltwater has. Meltwater is like a PR platform as well, which is really helpful. But yes, everything that you said, I agree with. And then on top of that, at the end of the day, I think people want to connect with people, and so influencers are at the end of the day, they're people, and so you want to be connecting with other people that you can trust. They don't want to be advertised to. You're not going to follow an account because you want ads in your face. You want to be able to have some sort of value there, or something that comes back to you. And so I think influencers are so beneficial because they can be the people on the ground in some ways, just kind of being advocates for your brand. And so for us, what we've done, really it's just finding the people that truly love us, rather than trying to go out and looking through lists. For us, the best influencers have been the ones that have made it known already. We haven't paid them or anything. First, they're already talking about our industry or already involved in it in some way. For example, today, before this, I was at our film factory because we had two, I would say, influencers in town, one from the UK and one from North Carolina. Between the two of them, they have 1.5 million followers. And so it's just that was kind of an organic, how we found them was just they already loved us. And so finding the people that are already talking about you in a positive way is oftentimes, those are the best influencers you can have, rather than trying to find somebody, oh, they have 1 million followers, I'm gonna go to them, and they don't know anything about your brand. So I've seen that.
Tiana, yeah. Oh, shit, I'm sorry.
I'll just add one thing. I agree with you. So when you think of influencers, you don't have to think of, the Kim Kardashians. There's a lot of micro-influencers, which Jeff was mentioning, and there's platforms to find them. But it's as simple as, if they have 50,000 followers, for instance, in Rochester, there's a lot of, micro-influencers who have a Rochester audience. Send them a DM, or sometimes they'll have their email in their Instagram account. And it's definitely a growing thing. I was like a mini Instagram influencer when I had 200,000 followers back in 2013, and it was an unheard of term. It wasn't even a thing. People would pay me $100 to post a picture, and I was like, sweet, this is amazing. I was in high school. I was like, this is awesome. So, now they would have had to pay a lot more, I think, for that audience, which is really interesting. But yeah, there's people similarly to me who are just kind of, sure, I love your product, send them a free product or whatever it is, and if they really enjoy the product, they may post about it. There's other different collaborations you can do, giveaways. If you want to give away your product, I'd love for you to announce this, things like that.
Notice how she just drops 200,000 followers. I've got 238 on living life. And
You're a micro-influencer.
I'll hang up Tiana for a second, but there's a dude, a good friend of mine, and he is a influencer, legit one, got a ton of followers, and he gets paid $1,000 per brand. He has 10 brands, $1,000 per month per brand. He's got 10 brands that pay him $1,000 a month, so he makes 10 grand, plus he gets all these additional ones that pay him $3,000, $5,000 for just a single post, a single story. It's freaking nuts. And what they pay him to do is to go off. Yes, Eric Hinman. Yeah, Eric Hinman. Yeah. So Eric Hinman looks like a Greek god. If you want to follow him, he's very good looking. And he works out nonstop. He's doing Ironmans and all kinds of things. And so he goes, his whole thing is he just travels the world. He gets paid $1 bajillion to travel the world and post nice pictures and oh, I'm drinking my coffee today, and that gave me a freaking $5,000. So, so the real goal is how do we all become influencers in this world? I don't know why you aren't asking that.
Susan, what did I do to your panel?
Yeah, not good. Sorry.
I think just to be quick, that is actually the answer and the question we should have. I'm very wary of influencers, and it's because they've never been vetted. And so now you are tackling your whole brand to this person and hoping that they don't have any kind of horrible history. The truth about influencers is just that they got there first. There's no reason that you can't get there. And if you don't know the influencers in your industry, you aren't as well researched about your industry as you think. You need to know who is really leading the social media discussion, whatever your field is, and you need to understand how and why they are doing it. It's not always because of great quality content. A lot of times it's because of their consistency. It's because they always have high quality things that people can replicate and it always works out. But I would say for the why, for instance, you already have a bunch of influencers. I mean, every time I go there's a lot of elderly men. I mean, those, you wouldn't think of those as influencers, but really you already have an entire audience, and so maybe leveraging what you already have instead of trying to attach your brand to somebody else.
So we still got 10 minutes left. I'm thinking that we'll take, if there are a few questions, we can take those so that they can answer them sort of whichever questions they feel
Like
they
a
can answer.
lightning round.
Like a lightning round, sort of. We'll get those, but before that, before I forget, we got Dan Smith, our Director of Communications, and Shan Neely, our marketing head here. They are our influencers. They absolutely do an incredible job at the Rochester Chamber, getting our message out, getting our
Let me
brand
record
out.
this one. Go ahead.
Getting our brand out. So I wanted to stop and give Shannon and Dan a round of applause for the work they do.
Please follow us.
He just goes into rooms and yells, "Please follow." So, all right. So why don't we go? We'll take like 3 questions and then we'll answer those, and hopefully we have time for more. So I'm sorry, that lady right there.
Yeah, just a question about hashtags. Sometimes I see, and I don't know a lot about how you're supposed to use them and whatnot, but sometimes I see really funny hashtags. You know, the ones that are like sentences, which I love, but it seems like that's not what you're supposed to do with it. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, like, it seems like the run-of-the-mill ones would get sort of buried in things, but the fun ones do nothing. So what's
Proper use of hashtags.
Yeah. So good. Proper use of
Okay.
hashtags.
Who's next?
Yep. Right here.
What do you guys think the shelf life is of influencers with the FTC crackdowns, the Instagram changing their algorithms, the Fire Festival scandal? How much longer can this kind of job sustain people?
All right.
Those are wide-ranging
Do we have one?
questions.
Yeah. Right here, sir.
For a professional services company, like a successful content strategy. Like
Okay.
Types of content.
Like ideas?
Like types of content that would generate the most engagement on LinkedIn.
Okay, on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's what you guys.
All right.
Okay, so I'll start with hashtags. There are kind of 2 purposes to hashtags. It's to curate your own audience so that every single post that you do towards that theme is found in one place, and it's also a way to kind of bring about a new audience. Obviously, with the hashtags, that's like hashtag beauty, you're gonna get buried. But if you do hashtag I'm beautiful on this crazy Wednesday, no one's gonna see it. So the most important thing you can do today is to follow all of the hashtags you want to use. If you follow the hashtags, it's more likely that you'll show up higher in them. And your goal is to get into the top 9, not just recent 9, the top 9 of your hashtag. That's when you start to go viral. So if you're going to use a hashtag like beauty, use a bunch of variations on it. And really start to think of yourself as the consumer or the user in that point. What hashtag would you look up? And then that's how you find yourself. Try and move quickly.
The influencers and
Shelf life on the
shelf
influencer.
life, yeah.
This is like a house of cards. I said earlier, they have no real history. There's no one vetting them. There's no one saying that what they're putting out there is actually true. And there have been stories of people who hurt themselves from trying different DIY products. I think there's only a matter of time before we crack down, but our government is also hella slow. So I don't know how quick that will be. I think it's more likely that it'll come from within the tech kind of industry than from the government, and you may just see them get shadow banned or kind of drop lower into your feed. LinkedIn, here you go. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Hashtag hella slow, I think that's the official. I don't understand how this format. Do I answer all of them or just one or
All three.
All three?
Whatever you think. If you
Okay.
want to touch on the content.
I also have a terrible memory. All I remember is Firefest. So, okay, hashtags. I don't have anything to add. Tiana, I could crush that one. Influencers, I agree. I think it's kind of like CBD oil right now. Like it's really popular, but there's not real great regulations around it. So there's a million things that could be in CBD oil. It's a big kind of category right now. So I think that over time, to Tiana's point, it will get more regulated. I think it's going to be almost self-regulated to a point where real influencers are going to rise to the top and people that are legit and doing really good things. But then there's also the video game woman recently that sold her bathwater and made $1 bajillion. I don't know if you saw that. That's a real story.
Yeah.
She sold her bathwater. She's a video game influencer, and she sold her bathwater, and people were drinking it and getting sick.
It's sold out. It's sold out in
It's
2 hours.
In 2 hours, it's sold out. Unbelievable. Again, why aren't we all influencers?
Bob, we're in the wrong industry.
Seriously. She made a ton of money and selling her bathwater. So yeah.
Was it really her bathwater?
It was truly her bathwater. She did
She could have.
well, I mean, she's taking videos of doing this and being in her bathtub or whatever, but it was. I mean, I only bought 5. It's fine. Collector's items. Don't. And then professional services content. So yeah, great question. I think it's a big one because again, it goes back to what are your goals, right? So if you're professionals, let's say you're a financial services company and you're trying to be the authority in what makes your business different in the very crowded financial service industry, right? I think it really depends on what you're trying to communicate as a brand. I think it depends on what the goals are. But let's say that you just want to be the content authority. You want, when somebody thinks about, oh, I got to roll over 401k, I don't know where to go, I don't know where to turn, that's where you should be creating content, finding opportunities where people have pain points or questions, and then filling in that gap with really, really good content, and then sharing that content with your network, right? And having your brand, and all the things you talked about, encouraging engagement. But it's really about identifying what are those goals, where are the pain points of your audiences, and how can you help to solve those pain points. And I think creating really good content around that is like the quickest way I can answer those questions.
Yeah, so to touch on hashtags, there's industry-specific hashtags for sure. So, for instance, we work with a tile company, and the interior design hashtags are actually pretty crazy, and people engage with them really a lot. So there's like really niche ones that you can find, and then there's also the broader ones that'll get you, they'll get buried really quickly, but you'll also get a ton of hits on them. So you just kind of got to test a lot of different ones, is what I would say. The shelf life, I also agree. This was a topic that when I was running my account was sort of talked about too, actually, in terms of what if Instagram goes down. So that's why it's great to diversify have audiences on all different channels and your website. Make sure you're getting traffic there too, because you can't rely, back to your point, you can't rely on social media because today it's huge, but tomorrow it could not be. It's gonna be something else. So and a new platform could come up. Exactly. So people, Instagram influencers, for instance, who have 1 million followers on Instagram but no other social media, that's probably a huge mistake. And then the professional content, lots of LinkedIn articles I think are really big, underutilized right now when people are paying attention to them more. You could do a series potentially. So if there's a specific topic that you think a lot of other businesses are wondering about, you could do a series. You could do interviews with other business owners in the industry, testimonials, meet the team, highlighting your employees, things like that are some interesting ideas, I think.
And we'll give the last word to Steve.
Oh, last word, wow. A lot of
No
pressure.
pressure.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to answer all 3 questions with one example. We'll see if this works. So 5 years ago, I started an account called Explore Rochester. It's an Instagram account where every week a different person in Rochester takes over the account and shares their perspective over the course of 9 posts. So they get to share like what their favorite things are, what their favorite things about the city are, any observation they can share. So for me, for that, how this connects to all these things. So for professional services, I really like what Sheila and Jeff said. I think everything there is great. One of the keys too is also creating content that's relatable, like where other people can see, oh, that could be me. And so that allows people to either engage with it or want to share it. If you do customer testimonials too, those customers might share it, and that spreads your network too. And so what we've seen with Explore Rochester is every week, because that's a new person, they have their own networks. And so when they take over for the week, they're sharing to their network, hey, I'm on this account this week, check me out. And we got up to 35,000 followers over the course of those 5 years because every week it's a different person sharing to their network. And so that's creating this kind of relatable content, because people see these people in these locations that they're familiar with, and they're like, that can be me. And so I think that can apply in some ways there. The hashtag part, Explore Rochester, that was a hashtag that I started probably 7 or 8 years ago. There was no, I mean, Instagram was pretty new at that point, but there was no photos on that. And so not only just using like what hashtags are popular, if you find one that's relatable to your business that you think other people might be able to grab onto or use in their own way, I think that's valuable too. And so starting Explore Rochester really for me was a way to share the photos of what I saw in Rochester. But over time, other people started being like, oh, I'm seeing these things too, I'm gonna share them there as well. Now that hashtag has over 100,000 photos on it. And so over time, now that's a place where there is a top 9. And so people want to be in the top 9, so more people are posting it. It's a snowball effect. As you build up momentum, more and more people want to be a part of it. And so then from an influencer standpoint there too, this is not a business, Explore Rochester, again, it has this reach, you're tapping into these different networks. And so I think that's always going to be a thing. There's always going to be people having something to share. It's just whether or not the government cracks down on how that's being paid out or whatnot, but there's always going to be people that are brand advocates. There's always going to be people that are pro your business or against your business, and I think that's still something worth engaging with, whether or not it is actually like a contractual relationship. There is opportunity to just engage with them or add value to them in some way, and that nurtures the relationship that you have there. So it's still worthwhile because any sort of positive interactions there can go a long way. For example, coming back around, so today I mentioned earlier, there's 1.5 million followers between the two guys that are here visiting from different places around the country. We didn't pay them, they wanted to come. They've been Kodak fans for their whole photography careers, and we said, hey, if you can make it to Rochester, we'll show you the factory, which is something that nobody usually gets the opportunity to do. They're like, yes, get on a plane, come, and they're gonna share about it on their social media. And so that's not like a paid thing, but it was an opportunity. I mean, at the end of the day, that might, as the FTC starts cracking down on things, there could be lines that you're crossing, but really that's just a relationship at the end of the day, so.
That was a lot to digest in 60 minutes, and I think we ended on a great note. Let's give our panelists one more round of applause.